Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Radhika Mahis. I'm the founder and director of Support Autism TNT. Welcome to our Facebook Live series, Our Voices, Tough Conversations with Autism Parents. This series aims to highlight the realities of raising a child with autism in Trinidad and Tobago, and in turn, to educate and advocate for more opportunities for our special children. It is broadcasted via Support Autism TNT's Facebook page. And today I am very, very happy to welcome on this live series Rebecca. Rebecca is the proud mom of a very sweet, cute little child with autism who, I have met him so many times and he's such a darling. Rebecca, thank you so much
Hi,
for
Radhika.
for being a part, for volunteering to be a part of this discussion and for having this conversation with us today. So tell us about your son. Tell us about Alex.
Alex is he's in second year, as you would call it. In the school he's in, they call it infants too. And he likes devices, he likes to draw, he hates to write. High energy, extremely intelligent, extremely loving. I am, when you read those books, they tell you that, spectrum kids have issues with expressing and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's a element of truth in terms of not all of his emotions he has words for. He has words for, but like the love and the hugs and the I love you, mommy, and this kind of thing. I love daddy. I love Lexi. When Lexi's being good to him, but when Lexi isn't good to him, he doesn't like her. Right? So he's very, expressive in that regard. And, it's really wonderful to watch him grow, from strength to strength. So it has been a joy. And he's very energetic, extremely energetic, And I'm at the point where initially when, I realized he was a spectrum kid, I'd pray to God because he didn't have a lot of words in the beginning. He would kind of just go off into his own world. And I would pray to God. I'm like, Lord, just give him his personality, give him everything that you want him to have, and help me to deal with it. And so God answers prayers clearly because he is definitely a lot of personality and coming into his own. So thank you.
He is. I agree with you. He is a little guy with a whole big personality. Absolutely adorable. Rebecca, tell us a little bit about that whole process of being of diagnosing him, and everything. Tell us about his story.
Right. So what I remembered is at the point in time, we kind of got Alex sorted out around 2 years, thereabout, 18 months to 2 years. We caught it early. And I know we were talking about, it takes a village. And it really took a village because it was his aunt, who is a guidance officer, social worker. She's in that field, that remit. That's her remit. She picked up on it and she actually told his dad that, I think Alex is on the spectrum. But his dad kind of held off telling me. At that point in time, I was really busy with work. And in my mind, honestly, deep down in my gut, Radhika, there was something, I don't know what it was, but there was something telling me, pay a little more attention to Alex. Because although he wasn't speaking, I remembered my deceased mom telling me that my brother spoke late. His grandmother on his father's side told me her two boys spoke late. And I'm like, maybe it's a boy thing, because my only experience was Lexi, who did everything on or before time. So I'm like, maybe it's a boy thing, but there was just something there. So when he did tell me, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't any of the emotions, like, I felt badly. I was kind of like, yes, okay, fine. This is what it is. Let's deal with it. But there was a moment where I kind of retracted and I was like, I had a little less hope because I don't have any spectrum co-workers. I've never worked with a person on the spectrum that I knew of. I never worked with someone with Down syndrome. I never worked with any adult individual in need of extra support, throughout my career, be it not that long, I'm not that old, right? And you don't really see a lot of special needs person in in positions, unless they kind of blazed their trail and did it and had to fight and whatever. So there was that sort of like, okay, this is my child now, but what is there for him going forward? So that feeling, to be quite honest, it comes in waves, comes and goes, comes and goes. But knowing what his that he was on the spectrum, we got diagnosed from Dr. Bahadur Singh. Remember, I reached out to you and said, Alex, and I do, because I saw the signs, I did the research. So what is our next step? And you told us to go to Dr. Bahadur Singh. We met him in Southern Medical. Then he transferred us to Pleasantville, where, we do the checkups and whatnot. And he has been with him from that point up until now. Initially, we did the whole gamut of therapy. We started off with, Alicia, and she did a really great job. And then we went to Ceylon, who has taken him, from strength to strength. And we did some OT, and, so he got the therapy. He was never placed in any sort of special needs school, because Dr. Bahadur Singh insisted that we put him in a neurotypical environment. And, we opted for private, because, we wanted the individual attention. We ended up at St. James Children's House in San Fernando, and they took really good care of him. They were so attentive to him. His auntie, so I mean, each group of 5 or what kids normally have an auntie, and I think his auntie really, really spoiled him. And then he ended up in another private school, and his first year teacher really, really spoiled him, right? So he's really, really spoiled, but in a good way, in that, but the spoiling isn't like PT spoil, because in the preschool, I got videos of Alex doing his chores, because they teach them to be independent. So he was there wiping up his table, picking up his blocks. That's his job. He has to do that. So so the journey, to be quite honest, for me, I really don't want to say it has been a hard one. The hardness comes to play when we're at those critical points, those decision-making points. What preschool, what primary school, but I am fortunate enough where I'm not wealthy, Radhika, in no way, but I'm fortunate enough to augment my budget in such a way that I could then pay to put him in a situation that would make him comfortable, and that I feel would make him comfortable and give him the best support. So thank God for that. And I pray for his continued blessings upon us. And he has a very active father who, doesn't shirk that sort of responsibility. So it makes it really easy. I mean, looking back, I just realized how fortunate I have been. And a lot of the avenues that I've tapped into are because, one, either that my employer has been really good to me, so I have a decent medical plan that allows me to offset therapy costs and that sort of thing. So, sometimes when I listen in, a parent group, and especially one that first live that you did, it's not that I feel guilty, but I really am appreciative of the situation that I've been blessed with to help support Alex and his development. So, that has kind of been the journey. The bumpy parts were really figuring out what is this feeling that we're having? Why is Alex peering off and extremely comfortable being on his own and not interacting in our space? And it has the difficulty was really scheduling therapies around because parents work full time and that sort of thing, and calling on the village that helped raise this child, but they also have other obligations. So it has more been scheduling and trying to have understanding employers and managers who kind of support those the need for him to have that care, tapping into to institutions that understand and respect that he needs an extra support. He needs to put an extra eye on, because he went through that wandering phase where he'd wander. And you need to, so when we started him in primary school, I had to tell the principal, I said, listen, he's a spectrum kid, but we also have this thing where he wanders. And she was like, don't worry, we'll deal with it. And something that really stood out to me was when we chose the primary school. And I told the principal, actually, no, it wasn't me, it was his dad who said, listen, I'm putting him here, but I don't want in the next 3 years you telling me the next 2 years that, I have to find something. So let me know now and let me find something that works, because I'm not about to be picking my child up. And the principal told him, she said, as long as Alex needs us, we are here for him. And, yeah.
Okay, you touched on quite a few things that I want to go back to. The first one is Alex was diagnosed at very young age, which is, one of the things that a lot of children with autism are not fortunate enough to get in Trinidad. We have so many of them being diagnosed, much later, 4 or 5 years old, even much later. But you obviously knew about autism to recognize that early sign. What did you see? What were the things that, kind of made you put your antenna up a little bit?
Well, one, mainly it was the name, not responding directly to his name, the eye contact, loss of words, because he had a few, backhoe, tractor, car, he had words, and then they kind of went down. And then, so even though, how should I put it? We were always interacting and in each other's lives and whatever. And I was aware of autism, and I saw those things happening to Alex. There was still this feeling that I didn't make the connection. And this is where the village comes in. And it was his aunt who gave the word to it, and everything just literally snapped into place and connected. And I was like, yes, that is it. Right, now time to fight. Let's do this.
And Rebecca, that early diagnosis really paved the way for Alex and where he is today. Yes. So what do you think we could put in place, at a national level to be able to recognize those kind of signs from as young as possible? What can we do as a society? What are some of the things you would suggest?
Again, because you are orbiting you're in my space. There's that general knowledge of what certain special needs items are. This whole Down syndromes, autism, dyslexia, ADHD. There are people in your environment, so you have knowledge, and you make yourself aware, because my goal has always been to raise kids who have empathy. Empathy is very important, and knowledge helps you with empathy. So I think one, definitely awareness. So the work you do, which is why I'm extremely passionate about your organization, and the work you do in raising awareness. If more people are aware, because again, Alex was cared for by his granny. So he wasn't in like a daycare where some sort of specialist would see him. And again, being blessed, there's a professional in his village. His aunt is a social worker, guidance officer. So, I don't want to say we got lucky, but we had certain advantages that sort of helped us. And And I think there needs to be some sort of program, since a lot of these kids go to clinic. But again, how much time do you need with a child to know that there's a spectrum issue? Is it enough for a clinic nurse to know? Do we need to bring back visiting? Do we need a more knowledge is important, but again, to catch it early. Remember, our kids only enter the school environment probably around 4 to 3, depending on what the parents do. So even if we put social workers in the school, there's still that 3-year gap prior to the intervention of the social worker, where just general knowledge and awareness that we as citizens have to know the signs, but then we don't want to overdiagnose, because I am of the opinion too that anytime a child just has a sensory issue, it now becomes autism. So, everybody just kind of, you can be sensory sensitive and not be on the spectrum. You could be ADHD and not be on the spectrum, or you could have a combination of sensory spectrum. It's a lot. So we want to be sensible, but we want to have the awareness, because there's that gap prior, that 3-year gap, which we were able to catch because of one, his aunt, just his father and I, having our awareness, you being in our space, and everything just kind of coming together. So we were able to function it early. But not everybody has that situation. And I'm generally not the type of person to say that everything is within the purview of the government. So to me, that prior period doesn't necessarily belong wholly and solely to the government. It's really up to individuals to go out and learn, to learn that we have an extremely neurodiverse society, and to become aware, and just to equip themselves to kind of figure out and ask questions. And I'm also in this group, Trini moms, and you hear parents, so and so, and issues and whatever. And at the heart of it, there's an instinct inside of a parent, or a guardian. There's this gut feeling that there's something, and sometimes it's okay to follow up on that gut feeling. And do some research. And yes, I mean, there's the danger of the almighty Google being Dr. Google, psychiatrist Google, everything Google. Everybody wants Google to answer, but reach out to NGOs. We have so many NGOs in Trinidad doing different things if we really just look and reach out for support. So I think the prior years, there's definitely just that awareness. We need to raise awareness, and we need to raise citizens. So it's probably a whole program to raise very much aware, empathetic kids throughout our education system, who will become very much aware, empathetic adults. And then, I always remember, the HIV/AIDS campaigns in the 1990s that you'll see across your TV. So you became aware, to be protected and that sort of thing. So, there's room for that awareness space, so that when parents have kids in at that very young pre-school period, before the guidance officers and social workers come into play, they're able to say, I think, where should I go? Who can I reach out to? And let me just check to make sure, and that sort of thing.
So we need to educate society on the whole. We need to change that whole mindset that we're talking about.
Yes.
I totally agree. Now, you did say that at the same time, we don't want to label, to overdiagnose.
Yes.
No, we don't want to go around that a child is, a child can't sit for more than 10 minutes. We automatically say, okay, something is wrong with that child. So in the situation, Alex, and just generally, is a label important?
You realize that I veer off from labels a lot. I try not, I call him a spectrum kid, because literally we're all human beings on some sort of a spectrum. So I try not to, but the label helps when gaining the knowledge is new. We're not a mature enough society to not have a label or not have a compartment for this situation that we're in. As we grow and as we, become more aware, we could probably drop the label. But for now, for people to get it, for it to stick, that these are the attributes of autism spectrum disorder
Yeah.
kid, or individual.
Yeah.
These are the issues or the label. I mean, for DS or Down syndrome, it's very black as white. For the most you see it.
Not
But
autism.
right, no, because I have people who tell me he doesn't look, and I mean, if you see him until, sometimes sets in and you'll see his light sensory issues and you'll see him, being very happy on his own and could veil very easily in his own world. And I do it, to be quite honest, it's quite comforting to leave this world, and have a little dance in your own space. But yeah, so the label is important at the stage we're in, at the level of maturity we're at as a society, to kind of get people on board, get understanding, start to advocate, start to get teachers to notice, start to include the awareness in the diploma programs, in whatever programs we have for nurses, police officers, doctors,
Everyone.
because you need to treat those kids. Lexi, I'm on a video.
Mom, but I burnt myself.
Okay. Lexi has not burnt herself. She's played with paint, trying to fool me into thinking she has burnt herself. This is paint, right? Yes. So
Seeing that Lexi is there, what is her, what is her relationship with Alex like? That's Alex. Yeah.
Lexi and Alex so I'm not going to lie, it started off rough because Lexi was her only child for a bit. And I am going to take some responsibility, and I'm still going to take some responsibility because I'm learning. So it started off rough because when Alex got diagnosed, I'm of the firm opinion if we pour everything into him now, he'll be equipped to take care of himself later. So I'm hand on heart, Radhika. Don't want to say neglect, but I felt that she was okay. She was okay.
What happened to you,
Alex, yes. She was okay. She can take care of herself a little more than Alex can. And I needed to focus on Alex a little more. So, at that time, we also had some transitioning issues in the family. And I remember Lexi telling me, Mommy, you only care about Alex, you only love Alex. And, it really gutted me. It's like, ooh, I'm doing something wrong here. I need to dial this back. And, I started to make extremely intentional efforts to give Lexi her time and to give Alex her time. And I also realized that I wasn't doing Alex any favor. I was really smothering him. I'm not going to lie. He didn't, he wasn't corrected when he did naughty things. Which like now, maybe right, maybe we should get some correction at least. And I realized it really wasn't doing any favors for Alex to not discipline him, to not prepare him properly for this world, because I'm not going to be here forever. And so in dialing back and focusing on understanding that they're neurodiverse kids, and they're the ones who are going to have to go forward in this world and depend on each other, because I'm not going to be here forever. I decided, I need to focus on Lexi, give Lexi her time, have mommy and Lexi time, mommy and daughter time, mommy and Alex time, then have mommy, Lexi and Alex time, and have, the group dynamic. I really don't think this was an issue for their dad. I think he sort of had it where, Alex would get his buff up, everybody get it treated. It really wasn't that deep for him. But for me, I just felt that, Alex needed more help. And again, hand on heart, this is what I realized I wasn't being empathetic towards Alex. I was pitying Alex, which is not a good thing. So as I dialed back, my relationship with Lexi got better and her relationship with Alex got better as well. Now they're really inseparable, up to mischief together. Yes, they do fall out, um, as brother and sister would, you know, and I have a different approach to discipline because initially I always thought, Alex was too innocent to do anything wrong. So somebody doing something. And then I realized, no, Alex is quite capable of being mischievous.
Rebecca, so
Mm-hmm.
one of the very important thing that come out from this discussion with you is the importance of a support system. And last week I spoke to Patricia, and Patricia was talking about her experience of being a single mother raising a child with autism. And her support system it's there, but not as extensive as yours or mine maybe. And I wanted to find out what would you suggest again? What are some of the things that you would suggest to ensure that every parent, regardless of special need, of single parent, father raising a child alone, whatever it is, what kind of things can we put in place to ensure that every single parent have some kind of support?
Right. I always tell people I'm a single woman, not a single parent, because honestly, their father does a really, really good job in terms of playing his role fully, right? Um, and I am aware not everyone is in that position. So, recently we formed this parent network group, and I think those are the little initiatives that sort of start to fill the gap where, but even though it's a start, what these parents really need, again, because you always realize that there's some parents that are burnt out, but they're quite unaware that they're burnt out, and they really need just someone to watch their kid for about 4 hours or a couple hours so that they could have some time to themselves. Um, Definitely daycare is not being open currently, and daycare centers not catering to our spectrum kids. And then obviously there would be some sort of cost. So that's a hard one, Rabs, because you're essentially asking me, how do we get adults to do what they're supposed to do? That's really what that question is, because if you're the parent of a kid, that's your job to step up.
Yeah.
Right? If you're an aunt of a spectrum kid or whatever, yes, you may not have all the tools, but you could find 2 hours to help a sister out, a brother out. And then we're in such weird times. I actually prefer to be burnt out before I give my kids over to strangers because of the environment we're in. So I could understand some parents just allowing themselves to be burnt out because there's a
Safety.
there's an ethics in society that is no longer there. And I mean, yes, we could say the government could open care centers, but we don't know what the workers are going to be like, So I think the poor ethics that we have as a society is now adding pressure onto these already vulnerable situations, but definitely these support networks that we have. I remember I shared a little anecdote that, as a special needs parent, you're reaching out, you're asking for help, and the government is telling you fill out forms, and this one is asking you to do this. But another special needs parent shows up in your home. What do I need to do? Action happens, So that's a tough one, Radical. I really don't have the answer. I definitely know that these single parents and these persons with very weak support system do need a proper support system, do need some sort of support system in place. And this is where sort of now with COVID that we're not having, school time, that was some sort of solace for parents, because yes, that was some sort of solace. Some of these schools do have therapists there, and it would allow the parents to work. But then we have a decent percentage of special needs kids who are not in school. Their parents have no choice but to keep them home, or parent have no choice but to keep them home. So they are actually not interacting, they're not growing, they're not realizing their full potential. Um, there are too many gaps. I don't have a solution except that we really be our brother's keeper. At this point, it really is just the humanity in us to see and know somebody is in need and say, pick up the phone and say, hey, do you need me to watch so and so for 2 hours while you do what I don't care? Do you know, something? Do you need me to clean your home? We need to kind of go back to those days when I remember, your mom would make some bread and sweet bread and send you up the road, go drop this to so and so, go drop, and you really didn't understand what was going on, except, you were happy just to be in the road. I don't know why. But it was really a different level of humanity at that point, knowing that, we all need help. And now we're kind of just so cloaked up, so self-serving, we look inward only to ourselves, seeking our own interests, that we're not seeing, the 360 and those that really do need our help.
And actually, Rebecca, you keep saying that that's a tough one, but you give us an answer there, and the answer is basically that we need, as I don't know, as the special needs population, need to have some kind of avenue where all the stakeholders can now come together and find solutions.
Yeah.
Because it's not as easy and black and white to say we need to do this and we need to do that. What would work for one person would not work for one.
No.
As you said, the ethics that we had is lacking in society. The village is not the village that it used to be, where you trust everybody with your children. I mean, even within the family, within the extended family, we have seen so many cases of abuses and all these things coming out.
Yep.
So maybe, because we cannot come up with fixed black and white solution, that says that we need to find a way to sit and have that kind of conversations with different groups and different stakeholders to now figure out what are some of the things that we could do, or we could at least put in place on even on a trial basis to see how we can help those who most need it. And even at that, we need to identify those who most need it.
Yeah, definitely, because I think a lot of times when we implement systems and solutions in Trinidad and probably around the world, because it's really, again, we've become a culture where, they're the minority. At least if the majority succeed, we're okay. So whatever plans we put in place are for the majority and those who can keep up. If you can keep up, you'll survive in this world. And if you can't keep up, you'll be left behind. And our group are the potential left behind groups.
Yes.
Amongst other left behind groups, because we're only talking about the special needs population. There are other potentially left behind groups. And a lot of people focus on, we'll focus on the majority. Once the majority gets something, well then, because we don't really aspire to care for everyone, but you're definitely right. We need to start to get a bit more innovative, because we do have a lot of burnt out single parents, special needs, kids, parents around, and they don't really, a daycare wouldn't work for some, because some mothers really don't trust their kids with strangers, and that is not an unsupported fear, but sometimes it's as simple as having the grand common time, having a deeper brand, having work from home opportunities, having the opportunity to learn a skill while at home. But then some parents are in the position where their kids are in so much need of support. They have to be going 24/7 to care for this individual. So then what then? Because it's easy to say there are all these programs, if you want and if you believe it, you can achieve it and everything. I mean, we all hear it and believe it and vision board and everything we, is bantered about to say, and yes, there are opportunities that some people can take care of, but there are a lot of cases that we're not documenting where these opportunities are a dream away because there are some parents consumed in the care of their special needs. Not, I don't want to say kids anymore because some of them have teens and young adults. These individuals are they require so much care. You have parents fearing, who are aging and fearing what will become of my kids when I'm gone, because I know that they need so much care and support. So, but definitely some sort of conversation need to be had. We definitely need data collection because, again, we know it's a lot because we're interacting and we're in the therapy spaces hearing about parents deciding, okay, I have twins, I have triplets, I have whatever, they're all special needs, but I could only do one at a time. I could only get therapy for one at a time. We're hearing these stories, but everyone else isn't. Decision makers are not hearing these stories, but they do hear the success stories, the ones whose parents have the resources and who could really fight and get tutors and therapy galore and really, mold them. And really that is a beautiful and powerful thing. But it is such a rare thing.
Yeah.
It is such a rare thing to have, to be able to provide everything your child needs to succeed.
Yeah.
And there are too many parents who don't have that opportunity. And it's going to kick us in the bum as a society later on.
Yeah, and it will, because we're seeing so many more cases, so many increases in the number of children who are being diagnosed with autism and other special needs. And these children are going to grow up in 10 years, 15 years, they're going to be the young adults. Then, it's only then we would really see the effect of not having put things in place now.
Yes.
Just to backtrack a little bit, you mentioned that some those fears, those fears for the future. Every single parent I interact with say the same thing. Their biggest fear is what will happen to their child or their children when they are not around. In your case with Alex, what are your, I mean, other than that, what are your biggest concerns or biggest fears? And what would you like to see in place for Alex as he's growing up and as he's getting older?
Okay. Rad, can we just pause for a minute?
Mommy, can I make dinner?
Hold on.
Okay, so we're back, Rebecca.
Yes.
I think having Alex and Lexi there disturbing you, well, not disturbing you, but need your attention, just shows
Being
you
themselves. Yes.
That's just so normal. What I want to ask you is, as we start to wrap up our conversation, I want you to tell me what would be your biggest advice to parents of children with special needs, children with autism and other special needs generally. What would be your advice to them?
Definitely I think sometimes deep down parents of special needs kids love their kids and they're prepared to go the extra mile, but they definitely need support, they need knowledge, and sometimes they're too afraid to ask. And I think the best advice is don't be afraid to ask. Because remember how I used to pester you, Rats? Like, this happened, what to do now?
And Rebecca, I should mention to anyone who's watching this video that Rebecca and I go way back. I've known
Yeah.
Rebecca since she was undergrad student
Yes.
at UE, Department
Yes.
of History. Were you in my tutorials? I can't remember.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just so interesting that people who I know all these years now call me and say, I mean, I ended up in this whole autism journey because of Raul. I didn't really know anybody then who had a child with autism, but it's just amazing how many people in my circle and in my wider circle are now calling and saying, well, I think my child has autism, or I think my nephew has autism. So it just shows, it goes to show us how small this world is.
Yeah.
And really and truly, as you said in the beginning, somewhere in this interview, we need to be our brother's keepers.
Yes.
Because it really goes to show that, and I am just so happy that, I had been through this a little bit a few years before you. So at least when you came, I was able to give you some advice because we had just gone through that and experienced that whole thing. And I think that is one of the biggest support system right there.
Yeah, definitely. So it's really about just asking questions, finding information, and following your instincts most of the time. And trust me, I know there are parents who have kids who are in need of a lot of support, And I remember while I was juggling, trying to schedule therapies and work and whatever, and people were just saying, hang in there. And I'm like, hang in, you ain't know what I going through, So multiplying that by 10, I am sitting here trying to give them advice seems a little, inappropriate to me. But all I can really, really say is hang in there, because from my experience, it has gotten better. Yes, there are, difficult times. And yes, I'm not in a situation where my child needs a lot of support. And yes, I'm in a situation where I have a very beautiful village helping me raise this child. And I'm not talking just immediate family. I'm talking about real, genuine friends that I have who look out for him, who look out for Lexi, who also advocate for Lexi, because people call me on it. You're giving Alex too much attention. You're being a little too hard on Lexi, so that I could sorry about that, so that I could strike a balance and care for them equally. So it's really about having that support network that would give you, that would check you, as a special needs parent. You also need that network or really good friends to tell you, listen, you're burnt out, you can't care for this child if you're burnt out. You really need to take care of yourself. And again, it's easier said than done. You want me to step back? Who's going to watch this very highly dependent child? You don't know what it's like. You don't know that he only eats pasta and butter, and when he's frustrated, he needs to sit in that specific corner to cool down. Nobody knows, nobody gets it, and there's so many little things I cannot go through it, and I cannot risk leaving you with him and coming back to him a little more traumatized than I left him, and then I have to restart the routine. All these things are real, but still we have to try, and we have to try to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of them. And I think one of the biggest bits of advice is for parents with special needs kids is to not be silent anymore. You know what? Some of the things that are in place are not working for us. And we just need to say, who gets offended? That's cool. And I hope we have leaders with enough emotional intelligence to know that parents are coming from a place of, yes, there's a little bit of hurt, but we want to be able to put individuals out in society who can be useful and not dependent. Our kids don't want to be dependent on society, and we don't want our kids and young adults to be dependent on society. So if you help us now to help them achieve their fullest potential, in the long run, and we're thinking, a little more long term, we're going to get it. So don't be offended at our passion. Our passion comes, and maybe we say a few harsh words because we've heard promises, rats, promises upon promises. I remember when the grant was coming out It was supposed to be across the board, but then it was tweaked in terms of a means. There's a means element to it. And, you know, so we know that we can have, we're supposed to be able to go to any primary school and our kids are accepted. But we hear the stories about the kids who are 8 years old and still not in a school, go to SS3s, go to district, still nothing. We have heard of parents who've lost their aides and now their children are having a very difficult time in school. And yes, some teachers are trying, but I am doing online school with my 2 kids and I'm trying to work and I'm ready to pull out my hair, and I have 2 kids just to supervise their teachers are teaching. So imagine one human being teacher in a class with 25 plus students and possibly 1 or 2 special needs kids. At some point in time, we need to realize that isn't working. So it's all well and good to say every child can get into school. It's not happening. Therapies are expensive. The grant is $1,500 and therapies run from $400 to $300, depending on what you're doing, and some up to $500. So within 2 to 3 weeks, or less, depending on the suite of therapy your child requires, and traveling and food and whatever, it's just not enough. You know, so when we lash out, it's because there's a level of frustration because there are things in place made to look like there are this long list of help available to special needs parents, but one to access it, it's a headache. And to those who can access it, they hit the criteria. You know, it's just a small subsection of our group, and so that brings a lot of frustration as well. So I mean, stop staying silent, please. Don't that we let's not be pretentious anymore. It's difficult, it's hard, and we need those who need to know that it's hard. Reach out to your wider village, share your experiences, take care of yourself, and continue to fight for your child, your young adult, your middle-aged adult. Continue to fight and advocate, because at some point in time, something has to give, you know.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you for sharing with us this afternoon. Thank you for having this kind of conversation with us, because we know that this is the kind of conversations that we need to keep going to bring that sense of, understanding of the realities in Trinidad. And I want to say thank you again for being so open about your experience. To everyone out there, thank you for viewing. We will be on again for next week with another one of our videos, one of our interviews in our series, Our Voices, tough conversations with autism parents. So thank you all very much. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Rebecca.
No problem, Rats, anytime. Right?